until you are ready to face moments of horror for an eternity of love. Until I send back your spirit that has wandered through so many forms and so many ages.
The Mummy was an entertaining 1932 Universal monster movie starring Boris Karloff as the monster. It was really neat to see him in this role. I mean, everybody knows and loves him as the Frankenstein monster, but he does a really good job here playing this mummy character. And it's a lot different than the Frankenstein monster who was, fire bad. No, the mummy character, this Imhotep that he plays, is much more cunning, much more articulate. And it's a really cool transition to go from watching him as Frankenstein to watching him play this mummy character. Both are great, and Boris Karloff just nails this role. I really loved watching him in this, as well as the Frankenstein films. So let me get into the story. It's basically that in the 1920s, there's a team of explorers there in Egypt, and they find this ancient mummy. And, right there, they should just stop what they're doing and cover him up and move on. But no, they find the mummy, they bring him out, and they also find an ancient scroll that, when read, manages to reanimate him. So, as you can expect, one of the crew members, who should have known better, reads the scroll, he goes loopy, and Imhotep comes back to life again. And basically, it's interesting, he starts with the bandaged look, and then it kind of clears away, and he sort of gains a human appearance. But what was really weird about this film, and I have to be honest, I don't think I've ever seen this before, so I wasn't familiar with the original story. But it's weird, he's brought back to life, but instead of just going crazy as this bandaged mummy, crying or, destroying things, he basically just sort of becomes an Egyptian human and then just kind of blends into society and vanishes for a little while. That really struck me as kind of weird. I guess it could happen, though. So then the story continues, and basically 10 years have passed. And he, as this Imhotep, has apparently just blended into Egyptian culture. He's learned English. He found a place to live. Presumably he got a job. And then he realized he wants to get back together with his old lost love, who he believes has been reincarnated as this actress played by Zita Johann.
You break your season's camp, Professor Pearson. Your colleagues have returned to London.
So the mummy's scheme is to get his reincarnated princess back again. How is he going to do this? Well, he uses these strange enchantments that create mind control and all sorts of mischief. In fact, this Imhotep does a lot of spell chanting, lots and lots of it. That and staring directly at the camera with a really creepy expression. So that's a big summary of what the film is about. This mummy guy comes back and he just wants his sweetie again. Does he succeed with his plan? Well, you're going to have to check the movie and find out. But this was an interesting story, and not really what I expected. And honestly, my introduction to the Mummy series would have been the Mummy movie from 1999 with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. And that was a lot of fun, if a little bit overloaded with CGI. And it was a great adventure film, maybe more in the spirit of an Indiana Jones type of movie. And it's completely different in tone and pacing than this 1932 Mummy movie. I think they're both great. I mean, the 1999 version has lots of screaming, running, stunts, explosion, and a mad computer-generated mummy who really wants to take over the world or something. All accompanied by an amazing Jerry Goldsmith soundtrack, it should be noted. And that's one of the interesting things, too, about this 1932 Mummy movie is I don't think there was any music at all, maybe tiny little bits here and there. But much like Dracula, when I reviewed that one with Bela Lugosi, there really isn't a lot of a soundtrack going on. And, I love soundtracks, but, if the movie is well acted and it's creepy enough and there's a good story, we can kind of pull it off without the music, I guess. Anyhow, as far as the Brendan Fraser 1999 version, I'll probably review that one someday as a separate review. But for now, back to the 32 Mummy. This one is a little more subdued. The mummy here is a crafty character. And he's up to mischief a little more subtly, doing his spells and things behind the scenes. And, again, you have to kind of get beyond the fact that he is reanimated in the 20th century, and he manages to just kind of sneak into society for 10 years unnoticed. Okay, it could happen, I guess, but that did seem a little bizarre. But then after the 10 years pass, he shows up and he's up to trouble. And I thought it was interesting that ultimately, I don't think he really wanted to take over the world or cause a lot of trouble. He just wanted to be with his old reincarnated bride.
It is not lawful for me, a priestess of Isis, to see or touch an unclean thing.
Come to the altar of Anubis, the guide of the dead.
So the film wasn't necessarily very scary, maybe a little creepy, but otherwise it's just a little weird, seeing this mummy kind of run around in secret, casting spells and stuff like that. Boris Karloff nails the role, though, and I think he's fantastic. I'll always appreciate him the most for the Frankenstein monster, but it was cool to see him play the mummy character as well. Also note that there was Edward Van Sloan who comes back as well. He's the older, wise gentleman who knows that something fishy is going on. He's been in Dracula and Frankenstein as well. So the thing I love about these Universal monster films is seeing so many of the same actors kind of reappear, sometimes in different roles, sometimes in similar roles. And The Mummy from 1932, it's an enjoyable Universal monster film. Probably not my favorite of this series, but it's still really good and it's worth checking out.